Senator Michelle Benson sits on the MNsure Legislative Oversight Committee. She's here now to discuss about what she heard at the hearing and what she thinks some of the problems are that remain. So thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time.
I'm glad to be here.
Senator, let's begin with, I want to ask you the same question I asked Representative Atkins. Do you think because of the security breach, the data breach, was there irreparable harm in the credibility of MNsure to Minnesotans?
Irreparable is a very high standard. I think people will question and push back for a long time. Once trust is broken, it has to be earned back. I tell my boys, one lie takes 1,000 truths, and so I think they're going to have to prove that they're capable of handling these difficult situations, sensitive data, and only time will tell. But it's not irreparable.
And there isn't a whole lot of time to prove, as using your words, with MNsure launching on October 1st. Now you contend continually throughout the hearing that there's a systemic problem with MNsure and its data intake process. So what do you think that problem is, and what would you like to see done?
I think we have a systemic management problem, not prioritizing, not focusing on those things that are essential to have done October 1st. Data privacy is essential. Having good processes in place is essential. Now, they made sure they rolled out the Paul Bunyan ads, and they had money for that, and they kept that secret until they were ready to launch. But when it comes to the agent's information, that wasn't sequestered. It wasn't treated with delicacy. The training, we found out today, navigator training is not moving a speed. Counties are not trained. Brokers are not trained. Those should have all been much higher priorities than some of the kind of softer skill sets. They're worried about getting people enrolled. I understand that. But let's get people enrolled into a system that's fully functioning and ready to protect Minnesotans.
During the hearing, we did hear from the Office of the Legislative Auditor, and knowing that that office is tasked with investigating this incident in particular and will perform audits on procedure in the future, does that provide for you a layer of security that makes you confident as this moves ahead?
It gives me more comfort. My background as a CPA, we would do internal controls tests. The legislative auditor, their team is so good at their job. They really take security, they take transparency very, very seriously. And I sit on the committee that oversees the Office of the Legislative Auditor and have the greatest amount of respect for the work they do. And so that will give comfort to me, and I hope to all Minnesotans. Mr. Nobles and his team will find weaknesses, point them out, possibly recommend corrective actions, and that will get us closer and closer to an optimal situation for MNsure.
Senator, it was stated in the committee and also by Representative Atkins that the best way to succeed is to fail fast and to fix it. Do you think that this data privacy breach could have, in the grand scheme of things, maybe helped the overall privacy concerns of MNsure, just the overall issues?
I'm not a big fan of making mistakes just to fix them. I'm a fan of testing your systems rigorously so you find mistakes before they happen. When you test a system well, you make the mistakes in your testing, and it minimizes the mistakes that actually impact the public. If we're moving too fast and we're making mistakes that actually put people's information at risk, it's because we haven't adequately tested the systems. The executive director, April Todd Malmov, talked about all the training they did and the training they did and the training they did. Well, obviously there's something missing. If the training was adequate, then the culture is not one where security is taken seriously. If they're moving too fast and they simply can't get all the training done and can't get a culture of security in place, then let's slow down and make sure we get this right.
They, meaning the MNsure folks,
Yes,
seem confident that they'll get everything in place and be able to launch October 1st, unless there is a smoking gun, using their phrase. Then of course they would not launch on October 1st. Are you confident?
And I think we're talking about two different areas.
Just in the grand scheme of things, if there are areas of discomfort, they said that they would hold back.
Actually, that's not specifically what they were addressing. They're addressing the back-end IT system that has to go through NIST testing, that our Chief Security Officer, Chris Busey, will be looking for those smoking guns. He too, good at his job. If he sees something that is a fatal flaw, he will stop. The front end, the other piece, is the training of the navigators, the training of county workers, the training of agents, these outreach grants. They're not talking about stopping if those systems aren't tested and in place. And so we're talking about two separate components, the front end business and then the back end IT. Back end IT, I believe that our chief security officer will absolutely put a stop if there's truly a risk. The front end, I don't think they're taking that as seriously.
Is that something you would, I think it's fair to say, you would like to see that addressed here in the next week? Is it something you will pursue with MNsure?
Absolutely, and I have been, and I try to do a lot of things behind the scenes. Being at committee hearings isn't always productive because you can't get kind of the immediate informative response that might be useful. You can't engage, inform, and collaborate, but that needs to be done. The brokers that gave testimony today are very concerned that their training is not moving apace so that they will be ready to serve their clients who might want to use the exchange to enroll. Again, I've talked to county officials and their people aren't being trained, and it seems to me the MNsure executive team is just going to move forward and address these things as hiccups, whereas I would like to see a more proactive approach where they took bits and pieces and said, let's be successful and move on, and be successful and move on, and be successful and move on. I don't want to learn through mistakes.
Senator Michelle Benson, with those words, we'd love to have you back once MNsure does launch. So we appreciate your time as always.
Absolutely. I'm grateful for the time.